So, welcome back to Sound Bites, the show about good people doing good things in the local food and drink industry. And one of those people is Keltie MacNeill, Director of Sustainability and Community Engagement at Benjamin Bridge. So, welcome, Keltie.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So, let's start with what is B Corp? When did you start the process and why?
Right. So B Corp is, I think the easiest way to describe it would be like that it's a sustainability certification. So we became aware of it, I would say probably just before COVID, so probably 2019. And it was actually our VP operations, Ashley McConnell Gordon. She had sort of stumbled across it and thought this could be a good certification that sort of fits our values. So we started looking into it at that time, and I would have started on the application process in early 2023, and then we achieved certification February 2024.
Right. And for those that don't know, B Corp is quite unique in the sense that beyond environmental sustainability, it speaks to sustainability in a broader sense in terms of community and how you treat your employees. So why was it important for BB to go on this journey?
Yeah, so I think the nice thing about B Corp is that I would describe it as very holistic. It's not the type of sustainability that focuses on one metric, like your waste stream or your carbon footprint. It kind of takes into account a lot broader context. So it actually it measures you on 5 categories. So your corporate governance, like for us, that we have anti-corruption, anti-bribery policies built into our board of directors code of conduct, that we are owned in Canada, owned locally, that we're not part of like a big conglomerate. So that's the governance side of it. And then it relates also to your workers. Are they treated fairly? Are they paid fair wages? Do they have adequate time off, protections in the workplace, good health and safety protocols? It relates to your customers. If you take good care of their data, if you make good on refunds and sort of satisfaction guarantees. Then it goes to community. So are you volunteering in the community, making donations? Are you working with a local supply chain? How many of your dollars are being spent locally versus, bringing in supplies from really, really far distances? So trying to keep it hyper local. And then it also relates to, of course, to the environment. So, water management, toxins and pollution. Are you mitigating wildlife damage? It's just kind of is very extensive. So how it works is that you can rank really highly in a few of the categories and maybe have weaknesses in other categories, but still achieve certification. So you need 80 points overall, and I believe we're around 91.2. So yeah, we really like that part of it, that it's holistic. It kind of aligns with our values, and it's not just about your environmental stewardship or your social impact, but all of it. And that really speaks to how Benjamin Bridge has operated since day one. It's kind of been in our DNA from Jerry and Dara, who founded the business back in 1999. So yeah.
So if we split it into a couple of halves, really, on the environmental side, just give maybe some key points of what you do in the vineyard and in the winery that if you can, I know you do so many things. I've witnessed a lot, but can you key point it or do a few little bullet points for people to understand how that really is important and integral to the BB way of life?
Right. Yeah. So I think when people think of environmental responsibility, they might think of, like the sprays in the vineyard or some of the manual practices. But for us, like we do all of these things, but it's very, again, holistic. So we're looking at, for example, in the vineyard where we would identify as regenerative. We were organic for about 20 years, certified organic. But then just due to several climate crisis issues in 2018 and 2023, like losing the crop, losing a huge portion of the vineyard, we're in like a rebuilding phase. And so where we're at with the regenerative side of things is also looking at not just the practices of, manually pruning, manually harvesting, reduction of like any sprays, any heavy metal sprays that are going into the vineyard, but also our carbon footprint. So how many tractor passes are we making? Because that's not only compaction on the land that we then have to mediate, but it's also, increasing our carbon footprint of how much diesel that tractor is using. So we really try to look at it in this zoomed out lens of, if we can use a spray that's more effective and only make 1 or 2 passes through the vineyard, that might be a bit more beneficial than something more plant-based that's going to take us 10 and 12 passes and constant sort of maintenance in the vineyard. So we're looking at it like in those kind of ways. And then in the winery, since I think 2013, we've been wild ferment all the way. So natural indigenous yeast, not inoculating with sort of cultivated yeasts. And that's a really important part of expressing our terroir. And then also low to no sulfur on a lot of our wines as they're coming in from the vineyard. So kind of in the natural wine sort of practices, but also we're scaling everything up as well. So it's a natural wine, but in like a polished way.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great statement, in a polished way. I mean, that's I think probably not that easy for, people just assume, oh, grapes are just picked and they go in and they get fermented and that's easy. It's not that easy. So it's actually quite impressive how polished the wines are, considering how you make them. Are you actually going to try to get ROC doesn't certified, like regenerative?
That's not on the radar right now, but I'm sure like in the future. Right now we're just settling into B-Corp and replanting the vineyard from the polar vortex in 2023.
Right.
So that's our focus right now. We're kind of the mindset we've grown and we're very dynamic. We have a lot of innovation in-house. So right now we're in the phase of trying to simplify and just really rebuild the farm. And not only the vineyard side of the farm, but I call them the interstitial spaces around the farm. So looking into like more pollinator activity, more cover cropping, more biodiversity. And we have like beehives and a culinary garden, and we've got a lot going on the farm. So we're kind of trying to focus on that again, more holistically before we go for more and more certification.
And I love the farm. So it's great. I went there last year. We did a little filming. It's wonderful. I guess the one little tough question and it's something that I think about a lot is when you're talked a lot about stepping back, thinking broader in terms of carbon footprint and things like that. How do you kind of internally balance the idea of packaging in bottle a heavier package relative to cans, boxes, and things like that? Must be, I think it's a balance that a lot of wineries are trying to ask themselves around the world. How do we balance what consumer acceptance of heavy bottles versus environmental sustainability of things like bag in the box? So how do you guys rationalize or think about that? I know that's the one tough question for this.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a super tough question, and there's not a clear answer to it right now. But I think how we approach it at Benjamin Bridge is, Mark, you'd be aware, like we're innovating with formats as well. So our aluminum can line has been really super successful, and that's really taken off. And 5-6 years ago when we started releasing cans, there was like a lot of feedback from both the wine community and from our customers of people, I would say now, like not getting it, but at the time it was like sort of fair where they were like, does this mean the quality's reducing? Like you're now throwing your sparkling wines into a can. So I think there was a lot of like fear and maybe a little bit of misunderstanding around those formats. But aluminum is an inert vessel, just like glass. It doesn't impact the wine quality in any way. There's no oxygen. It's sealed. It's very much like a bottle, except very, very light compared to glass and infinitely recyclable. We've done a few things in-house to look at our waste stream, and we actually visited like our local landfill and waste manager at Valley Waste and talked to them about like, where does our glass go? So I buy a bottle of Nova 7. I live in the Gaspereau Valley. I buy a bottle of Nova 7. I bring it home. I drink it. And then I put that in my recycling bin that goes to Valley Waste. Where does that end up? And we were really shocked to find out that for the most part, it's sold into different markets, even into the US. At first, it's shipped to New Brunswick, and then it's sold into the US, and it's crushed, and a lot of times used as asphalt, so used in paving. So it's not recycled. We all had this perspective that it was melted down and made into bottles again, but that's not the case with glass. So not only is it like heavy to ship, it's not really recyclable. So
Right.
this
It's
is where we
becoming
start to
single use, which is not what any of us intend.
it's basically single use, yeah, and very, very heavy single use. So, a lot of our products are still in glass bottles and will continue to be until we find solutions. But we've gotten lighter and lighter bottles, specifically with Nova 7. Like if you pick up an older vintage from our
Mm.
cellar and a newer vintage, like you can actually feel the weight difference between those bottles. So we are making smaller changes like that, but I would say we're always open to
Mm.
innovation, and our whole team is constantly looking at, mushroom
Oh
production,
yeah.
paper bottles,
Oh yeah.
metal.
We'd love to see frugal pack or our key kegs would be interesting to have here in Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
But
it's
but
it's
but it
always
does
about
take infrastructure too around
it
it.
takes infrastructure, and there's a lot of technical leaps that you have to make, and it's really everything is like new puzzle. So yeah, we have to be really careful about the business when we do that.
And finally, on the let's talk a little bit about the other side of B Corp, and not the environmental side, but the kind of community and employee side. So, um, I think that's probably one of the great news stories of BB is that, and obviously it's not just great news; it's because it's in your DNA, but is how you respect community, and I think that one of the, and maybe you can elaborate on too, how you respect community, but maybe also your land and the people of that came before us. Is that kind of part of that kind of vision of sustainability?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, Jerry and Dara, who founded the business, were very community minded, very passionate about local economic development, and it's definitely, like I said, part of the DNA. So this was a really natural part of getting B Corp certification, that we were able to really demonstrate what we already do. So we have a really strong tie to our community, really strong like giving back kind of model. But yeah, we really feel like we need to be a positive addition to the landscape, and that means environmentally, but also socially. So we actually are now working on a 4-day work week model. Not everyone, for some people, even for myself, like the 4-day work week doesn't fit. So it's a flexible option, but people who are on the 4-day work week model, and even myself who's not on the 4-day work week model, we're mandated to give 60 hours of volunteer service to our community. Um, so yeah, the folks who are working 4 days, for example, would work 36 hours, but be paid for 40 hours because of the compression of the work week. So that means they're being paid for a lot of hours that they're not working. So instead of, trying to do 4.5 days or make the 4 days really long, we decided that those days would be paid days in community. So we have folks who are volunteering for women's shelters and business development and agricultural boards and all kinds of educational things. So that's a really big part of it. But yeah, and we also, I think what you were getting to in your question is also that a huge part of our perspective on things is that the Indigenous voice has been missing in food and wine for a long time. And we're really keen on bringing that to the forefront of the conversation of wine. So, in that regards, we have a formal allyship with Glooskap First Nation. And we are actually working on a number of collaborations behind the scenes, but we actually have a collaboration wine called Glooskap First Nation Rosé that is available at the NSLC and available, on our website. And 50% of those proceeds actually go to Glooskap First Nation. They don't take on any of the overhead of production or marketing and selling costs. That's all absorbed by Benjamin Briff, but we share 50% of the profits
Amazing.
directly to them. And in our view, that's just our role that we play in reconciliation.
Amazing. So, I mean, I guess in conclusion, I mean, BB is, I mean, you're doing the right thing. So, thanks for being an amazing part of our community. And really, for anybody watching, like to attain B Corp is not easy. And there are very few wineries in the world that have gone through that process. So, kudos to you guys. So, thanks for being so supportive of Nova Scotia.
Thanks, Mark. This is where we all live and work. So yeah, we're we're happy to be trailblazers in the community
And good pet owners.
and good pet owners. Yeah, yeah. Somebody's keeping it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thanks,
Thanks a
Keltie, and
lot.
we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.